Hi, Misha here. And 5 years ago or so, we had no Polish 7.62x39 AK imports. And today, in 2021, we have two, just in the rifle configuration alone. Plus, we have an option in 5.56, and we have pistol options. And so, in this video, it's time to pit the FB-Radom Beryl M1 7.62x39 up against the WBP Fox. This Fox we've put many rounds through. This is an early generation one. And the Beryl, we've only put a few mags through because these just came out. So we'll compare and contrast features, talk about any evident pros and cons, and show you a bit of shooting, although what I have for the Beryl here is very limited. But with that, just so you can see, here's a mag through this gun, and here's a couple through the WBP from the past. Polish Beryl. Fox. Through thousands of rounds, the WBP has been essentially 100% reliable. The Beryl M1, while it is new and not even really broken in yet, because it is from FB-Radom, I have great faith that it'll hold up just fine. But if for some reason it doesn't, you know you'll hear about it. In the general specs, though, these are extremely similar, so that has led many people to ask which one to get. Okay, so they're both on 1.0 millimeter stamped receivers. Both do have very well done magwell dimples. Both also have the XY stamping for the trigger pins. Not only does that look neat, it's also good for reinforcing the area there. Both feed from standard 30 round magazines, firing 7.62x39. Both also have the Beryl style scope rail mount up here and in the back. Both use a standard AKM trigger group. And actually both have the same 16¼ inch cold hammer forged chrome line barrel made by FB-Radom. Even though WBP is a different factory owned by different people, they build their guns with several Radom parts, especially the barrels. However, Radom has also said they build their guns with a handful of WBP parts. Which ones, they're kind of not saying, but the point is, both factories, while they build their own guns, do use each other's parts. And of course, both are imported as sporters, meaning single stack magwells, but are opened up here by, say, Atlantic Firearms. So the difference in the magwell can change a bit depending on the way they were opened up. Both are threaded 14 millimeter, 14x1 left hand. The WBP typically has a bayonet lug, and the Beryl, as of right now, while it has the area one can be cut out, does not have one. So that's how they're similar. Both of these are true blue imports. And Pioneer Arms, PAC, has nothing to do with either one. So now let's talk about how they are different. So overall, generally, yes, both are based on the AK. But the WBP is very, very much like a traditional AKM. Not exactly, but close. Whereas the Beryl is, well, based on the modern Beryl, which, as I've said in other videos, is still an AK, but it's about as far as you can push the AK design and still really be able to call it an AK. Otherwise, it's just kind of more of an AK action. And the barrel profile probably jumps out at you. Both are 16-inch barrels, but the WBP has a traditional standard front sight placement with threads here. And then we have our traditional gas block, traditional handguard retainer. This takes standard AKM handguards with the cleaning rod under the barrel. But the Beryl is different. We have our muzzle device here. And then some distance, and then the lug and front sight. And when we did the first video on these, many people asked why. Well, the reason is for a bayonet to fit, and also for a rifle grenade to fit, and because sights are expected to be secondary anyway. But it's basically to keep the same profile as the 5.56 version. Coming back here, we have a different gas block style. It's the 90 degree. And we have this lug or coupler for a clip-on bipod. The WBP doesn't have that. And the Beryl takes its own handguards. We have this QD lever here on the retainer that lets it slide forward. Now the lower handguard, that's interchangeable. But it's the upper that's different. This has a standard gas tube with upper on it. This handguard is not connected to the gas tube, although I believe Atlantic is working on an adapter so you can get standard handguard, upper handguards to fit. So right now, as they come, lowers are interchangeable, uppers are not. Moving back, we have standard AKM type rear sights. Again, they have the cuts for the Beryl scope rail on both. This has a standard blackened, painted, or phosphated carrier. This WBP of mine has the carrier in the white, a non-lightning cut. I believe other ones made, though, more recently don't. Another difference, this has the standard safety, whereas this has the extended shelf safety. Likewise, it has the enhanced extended mag release, whereas the WBP has the standard. The WBP has the thicker, heavier top cover here. Smooth. The Beryl has a more traditional ribbed top cover. The ribbing is for strength, but it's also thinner steel slightly. The rear trunnion on the WBP has the traditional AK2 rivet, although it does have the lug for the rail. Whereas on the Beryl, we have the 3 rivet rear trunnion here. The extra rivet was added for strength for grenade launching. And then again, we have the rear lug there. And they both take standard pistol grips. Flipping these back over, you'll notice that there is no rail on the side. That's because on the military version, the selector switch for the fire mode is on the left, meaning there's not space for a scope rail. But on the WBP, because it's more traditional AK controls, it does have the scope rail here. And I would say overall the finish, the Beryl guns tend to have mostly a nice, even, smooth phosphate. Although sometimes you'll find painted components on these. The WBP, on the other hand, uses a paint finish with very little, if any, phosphating. The WBP has a cleaning rod under the barrel. That's normal and standard for an AKM. The Beryl does not have one under the barrel, nor can it take one, because, well, they had these QD handguards, and instead of doing the cleaning rod under the barrel, they had a two-piece sectional rod that would go in the cleaning kit, in the mag pouch. So those are the similarities and differences. Internally, they both use, same type of bolt carrier and everything. But let's look inside anyway. The carriers look very similar except for the finish. The one in the WBP does not have the lightning cut here. The Beryl does. But I believe newer WBPs may have the lightning cut and the bolt is painted, or the carrier rather, is painted instead. Pistons look the same. Both are cut for semi only because they're imports. Nothing special there. And likewise, the bolts are the same. The stem size pretty much identical. Even the lightning cuts are identical. So much so that I would suspect someone's using someone else's bolts, maybe. Again, authorized, but yeah, no difference there. Both have floating firing pins. So yeah, there's really no difference in the bolt groups and all that good stuff. Now, I was out shooting with a friend, and his son had never handled, much less fired, an AK. So just as an interesting data point, I handed him the Beryl to see how he did. So take a look. Now I'll let Tanner shoot his first AK ever, the Beryl. So yeah, even for someone who had never handled, much less fired an AK, it was fine. I kind of worried that the foregrip might give him trouble, but it doesn't really seem to interfere. The part that really kind of confused him was the rock and lock magazine system. He's accustomed to AR-15s in their style, so that was a bit of a interesting thing to observe. And of course, then he asked why it was this way versus the other way, and boy, that's a whole story in and of itself. But it's always interesting and always good to get a fresh perspective from someone who hasn't been dealing with AKs and has a different mindset. But no, it worked plenty well for him. And again, the Fox has always worked really well for us. We did have one that came in the store new that was giving a customer troubles. And we did troubleshoot it, making a whole video about the process, but it turned out the top cover had been subtly kind of pinched in during shipment or something. So once we got a new top cover, it ran just fine. In fact, just, for fairness' sake, take a look at a couple of those clips. Fox test 1. Yep, that's what it's doing.
Yep.
Okay. Fox 2 with the extra power spring.
Same issue. Looks like there's just enough power robbed from this trying to strip the mag to stop it.
Fox test 4, bikini style.
That's a bolt open mag, so.
Gotcha. I was like, what? But other than that one gun, which we got resolved, the Fox, not just mine, not just Jay's, but many that I've sold through the store, has been very reliable, very good. And as I remind in any video, everyone has a lemon. The Beryl is very new, and the biggest complaint I've seen is some people worry about rivets. Some people claim they have a kind of a funky looking rivet. And as I've reminded, this has 3 in the back. So even if one gives way, which is not likely at all, you still have the standard 2 in the back in the first place. But it's mostly a cosmetic thing. On the other hand, sometimes the paint finish on these Foxes can be less than durable. I think the newer versions, the V2, the Gen 2s, they've improved that. But still yet, it's just a paint over metal finish, whereas this is a phosphate or paint over phosphate finish. So I would say the finish on the Beryl is probably, generally speaking, a little bit nicer. But barrel-wise, they're going to be equal because they're both FB-Radom barrels, even though the profile is a little different. It's a little bit heavier, more AKM on the Fox. It's more of an AK-74 thinner profile on the Beryl. Again, very minor differences, guys. Very, very minor. So, yeah. Which one should you get? What are the pros and cons? And is the difference in cost really worth it? The Beryl retail price is $1,500, although since these are new, they've gone higher on Gunbroker, but retail is $1,500. The Fox, depending on which version you buy, the price has been anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200, again retail. Both of these are imported by Arms of America, and both are remanufactured and sold in the USA by Atlantic Firearms. So they're less competitors and more brothers or stepbrothers or half-brothers. Let's go with half-brothers. That makes sense since they do use a bit of the same components, yet they are from 2 distinct factories. So with that, let's wrap things up with some pros and cons and maybe a little bit of my own opinion. Fox. First off, furniture doesn't matter because they come in both with sporter stocks. So the vendor or the owner can add whatever furniture they want. Ditto for magazines. They're standard compatible. And even muzzle devices. So all that can change. The Beryl does have some military pedigree, not just because of its 5.56 cousin, but also because the Nigerian Army has adopted at least 2,000 of these. So it has been tested to that level. But WBP is doing well too. Many might think of them as kind of a Johnny-come-lately, and years ago that was true. But they've been in the AK market for 20 years now, and they've been sending stuff over to the USA for nearly 10. First parts kits, and then starting 5 years ago, firearms. And after that time, there have been hundreds or thousands in America that have been shot. So we do have a decent amount of feedback on them. In addition, WBP has had several contracts with private security, law enforcement, and even to help refurbish and maintain other nations' existing military AKs. I think Egypt was one of them. So they both have official contracts. And so they both have kind of tested track records. By the way, just in case someone asks, yes, they both have forged front trunnions. That kind of thing. So, which to get? When I did the video talking about the Beryl versus the Sam 5, I was pretty clear that I kind of felt like the Beryl was superior for exactly the same money. Here, though, I really can't say that. I really like the WBP. But then again, the Beryl is really neat. From a collecting point of view, purely that, the Beryl is probably better. There will probably always be fewer of these in the country. And it's a unique design to Poland. So collectible wise, yeah, probably the Beryl. But it is going to be more expensive. The WBP, though, as a shooter, might be good because it's compatible with standard handguards and has the classic AKM profile, which many might enjoy. Now, accuracy, since these use the same barrel and the exact same looking bolt groups, really, it's probably going to come down to individual guns. One person might say, hey, my Beryl is more accurate. Another person might say, my Fox is more accurate. And they're both probably telling the truth because it's probably too close to really care. So there's that. As far as reliability, the Fox is. The Beryl, initial impressions, very good, but time will tell. I will say both of these have passed AK Operators Union's tests, so not really concerned, honestly, either way with either one. Yeah, I wish this was easier. It's really not. Both have the Beryl rail system. One thing that might sway some people is the fact that the FB gun does not have the side rail, whereas the WBP does. So if you want a side rail, then the WBP clearly has the advantage. No arguments there. On the other hand, the WBP, at least mine, has standard controls, whereas you do get the enhanced controls with the Beryl. And to be honest, now the safety's fine, but this extended enlarged mag catch is worth its weight. It is a very nice part. I will give it full credit there. I also do like the fact that the Beryl has the mount for the clip-on bipod, although it's questionable how often you will really use it. But you might. You might. I will say that picking these both up, weight-wise, they're very close. I feel like the Beryl might be just a smidgen lighter, but I think it's just because the front end is lighter and you have, more of your weight back here. They're really close, but I do feel like the Beryl is slightly better balanced. As far as the trigger groups, that doesn't really matter because you'll probably change those out anyway. Let's rack the actions here. Why not? I know this isn't ideal with me doing the camera work, but what can you do? This WBP has always been very smooth. I think part of that is the bolt carrier in the white. The other part is it's been shot a lot. This gun is practically new. Although it is still very smooth too. This still has the original Polish FCG in it, which has a nice military, even, no grit, no grime. It's not an ALG or any match trigger, but it's nice. Again, I would say the WBP has a smoother bolt, but that could, and probably very much is the fact that it's a much higher round count gun. Fit and finish is just excellent, really, on both. No play on this with anything. No play on the gas tube. A little bit of up-down play for the front of the cover, but in the back, nothing. I mean, you know what I mean. Wiggle, but no front-back play. So, little play here on the cover, whereas not here. But again, I remind you, high round count versus not. I wish I could give you a definitive answer. Right now, with the way things are, I would get whichever one you could find. But let's just assume June comes around and things are back to normal. This is $1,500. This is, say, $1,200 with a nice set of American furniture. Well, the WBP is certainly no slouch, and you can always install the extended controls if you want, and it does have the side rail. And it is your standard AKM design. So I think for a shooter or someone just wanting an AK, the WBP is the better choice. But for a collector or someone wanting an example of a modern Polish gun, kind of the final evolution of their AK, because now they're going to the Grot, so they're kind of done with it. And for someone wanting something different, because I really do feel like there will be fewer of these in the country going forward. And because it does have slightly nicer finish. And it's probably a little bit sturdier thanks to things like the 3-rivet rear trunnion. If you're kind of into that, and you know, like the modern look, the extended controls are nice. This is very soft shooting. Both of them are soft shooting for an AK. They don't have that really overgassed feel. But I will say, I think the Beryl is slightly softer shooting. And this combined with the kind of lighter weight on the muzzle end, personally for me, pulling the trigger, I like the way this one shoots better. However, again, the WBP, racking the bolt and all that, it is sure nice. And since it is essentially your basic AKM, it's a great basis for a custom gun. I mean, hell, slap some wood furniture on this guy. Maybe take off this back piece here. You can make a very good clone of a Polish AKM. Whereas your Beryl here, it's always going to be a Beryl. It has the unique handguard retainer, the unique placement of the front sight, and just overall unique look. So the Beryl is always going to be a Beryl. And I think it'll always be probably a little more of a collectible than a shootable. Also, one thing to point out, this just screws directly onto the barrel. So there's no spring-loaded detent. If you do like changing muzzle devices frequently, the WBP is probably a better bet because you can unscrew this. On this, these are often Loctited on, and you'll need to use like a crush washer or a lock washer, otherwise it would unscrew. From Atlantic, they come on with easily broken Loctite. So I hope that maybe answers your question a little bit. I really like both. Polish guns still continue to be very nice, in my opinion, reliable. Keep in mind though, these are military type guns, so there could be wonky rivets on either one, and there could be blemishes in the finish on either one. These guns, either one, are built for reliability and durability. And I think both of them will excel at that. The WBP has proven itself to my satisfaction, and the Beryl, based on past FB products and its own testing in various militaries, seems to be well on its way. But early days for this gun. So, full disclosure, stay tuned, because different guns, even just changing the caliber, can change the situation. Look at the CZ Bren 2 MS in 5.56, which is working very well, versus the one in 7.62x39, which a few people have reported problems with. So it just goes to show you. But yeah, Polish versus Polish. I don't think you would be upset with either one, frankly. And of course, as you can tell, with the sling on each one, my answer for me own self is very simple. Get both. To be fair, I've had the WBP for years now, ever since they came out. And I was not planning on keeping one of the Beryl M762s, but they came in, they were neat, they were different, and I really liked how it shoots. So it ended up kind of joining the collection as well. But this is just an initial review, kind of comparison. Please let me know if you own either one of these, what you think and your own experiences. I think we should all kind of pull our results and compare and contrast. Hopefully the next batch of Beryls is in, or coming in soon, depending on when I publish this video. And hopefully more WBPs will be coming in. But I do not think you would be ill-served by either one. And I would pick either of these over the SLR 107R. And if you have the money, I would pick it over a Wasser 10. I like the Wasser 10, but these are nicer, more refined guns, in my opinion. And with that, guys, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you tuning in. Please feel free to comment and share your own experiences. And please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to the Patreon page. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon with hopefully more Beryl shooting next time.